I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, and back in my day, when we wanted to hear the radio, we had to stick a couple of coat hangers on Grandpa's head so his cavity fillings could pick up an AM station. But it's the 21st century now, so whenever I want to hear Rainier Avenue Radio.world, I listen to it on the brand new Rainier Avenue Radio app on my Android or iPhone. Download it for free at the Google Play Store or the iPhone App Store, the Rainier Avenue Radio.world app.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to
You
say.
see lots of people who've gotten rich quickly and gotten poor just as quickly and left nothing to their families and or the community. That's a big chunk of the piece that needs to change. We need to see people making their investment in their families and in themselves and in the community. We want to build all three of those elements. We want to establish long-lasting family and community wealth, not just people who've gotten rich and squandered it. Those who have wealth will be opposed to our breaking the status quo, so this will be a struggle. All those folks are used to how things have been for hundreds of years, and that's the piece that needs to change, and they need to be able to stand by.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Different rules apply when it gets this late, you know what I mean? It's like after hours.
Whatever gets you through the night.
Hello, I'm an unpaid spokesman for DJ Sotovaci. I'd like to invite you to listen to his free-form music show. It's popular music the way it was never intended to be heard. Whatever gets you through the night, late nights, here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio,
your community radio station.
Do you have an idea for a community project in your neighborhood? You could be eligible for.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, joining me, and joining me, of course, once again for this debate is Alicia Crank. Alicia, good to see you again.
What's up? This is becoming a regular. I feel like I should have a show.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I should have a show. Let's make that happen.
Well, here we are. District 4.
Yes.
Another location.
Yes.
Another district.
Yes.
Just so far, what are your feelings about what's going on? What are your thoughts? And one of the things that I like is that we're doing a number of these, and so we get to show some of the differences in the district. But for you, what has this been like? So you have an entirely different role. You're the executive director of the Seattle City Club.
Yes.
And I'm talking to you right now like folks don't know that. For some of you, you may be joining us for the first time.
Yes.
So before I get into all of that, let's do this one more again.
Okay. Just take
a little bit about your background. You are the executive director of
Seattle
City Club.
Seattle City Club.
And,
we are a 43-year-old civic engagement and civil discourse organization. So we put on a lot of different events across the city and now across the region. And one of our programs is the Washington State Debate Coalition, which also includes doing local debates when they come around. So that we did them in 2019 and now we're doing them again.
And let's talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff that you do. We've been talking about the debates, but y'all do lots of stuff.
do. My favorite program that we do is called Civic Cocktail, and it does involve cocktails. So if you want to just come for that, you can. We do it monthly. We do it 8 times a year. We take the summer off in December and January, but every month we get together at the Collective Seattle down in South Lake Union. And we do a different topic or topics that relate to folks in the region. It can be we did one on Roe versus Wade before that whole thing blew up.
Oh boy.
But then we do other ones, like we did a fireside chat with Mayor Harrell back in May. We did one around getting youth and BIPOC outdoors, running and doing all those things. So we had Allison Desir come out and talk about that. So we have a handful of different topics we talk about, but we have fun and we have libations. So there you go.
Well, today it will be a debate.
Yes.
This is the pre-debate show. The candidates are Ron Davis and Maritza Rivera.
Yes.
District 4, Seattle City Council.
Yes.
One of the things that I have noticed is that across the districts, across the city, a lot of the issues are the same.
Yeah.
But we're also finding out that within each district, there are nuances.
Correct.
As well.
Yes.
And so now I go back to where I was before, which is as we've gone through this process, what have you noticed? What have you seen? What have you thought about what's going on here?
You know, it hits me a couple of different ways. One, I live up in Edmonds, so you know I'm getting to learn a lot about Seattle politics.
Me too.
And also, but to your point though, even though there are topics that cross all the districts, each district also has its own unique stuff going on. So it's been interesting to listen in on District 1 and District 3 and now 4. To be able to hear what are those specific things to that district that they want to have addressed. I really loved the interview that you did at Seattle Central College with the professor there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just love Livingston, and he was great, and I loved how his love for you and everything that you do. So we always need to give each other flowers while we're still here, and not when we leave. But so it's just great to be able to hear the different nuances between the districts. I'm eager to learn what's specific to District 4 that needs to be addressed, and how we can take things like that and make them into topics for civic cocktail events that we do in the coming year.
Well, this is an opportunity once again to learn more about your District 4 candidates that are running. And it is a little difficult to get folks' attention when it's not a national election year.
True.
And so I think it's really important that we're doing this and creating awareness and giving people the opportunity to be more informed. These are the folks who are going to represent your district.
Right. And I think, and I'm a piggyback off of that to go, being able to do this in their respective districts was really important to us in doing that, because to your point, like not some people just don't pay attention, but it's a little easier to pay attention when it's in your backyard.
Yeah.
And then second, being able to do this with media partners like yourself, if someone misses it because they're not here in person, it doesn't mean that they don't get access to it. They can still go back and watch it at their own time and leisure. They can stop and rewind or fast forward and get what it is that they want to make sure that they heard was accurate. So I think being able to create this kind of content for people to go back and listen to and learn from when it's convenient for them to do it, it's great.
Well, it gives us a really great opportunity here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk to Stephen Hecht.
Hey, yep. What he doing? Oh, we're going to talk to Josh.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, all right. Well,
I don't want to give it up yet, Josh. Well, I'll just leave. I'll leave with this: is that again? I'm so glad you're here. I know we're going to do this one more time on Tuesday.
One more again.
So one more again. So we're gonna do that. So thank you so much. And yeah, people hold him accountable. I want a show. I got the software at home. I'm ready. Just put me on. But here comes one of our moderators for tonight's debate. So here we go.
Thanks for joining me again.
Thank you.
One more time, Alicia.
One more time.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our pre-debate show. This is debate for council. Come on, have a seat. And this is for Seattle City Council District 4 position. Joining me is Josh Cohen. Go ahead and put those on, Josh. And now you're in there with me. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well, you're moderating Crosscut. Let's first find out a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, what you do at Crosscut.
Yeah, my title is city reporter. A lot of that is like city hall coverage, city council, the mayor, the departments, and then also just kind of keep an eye on big issues in the city. Homelessness, housing, of course, are big ones. Policing. Public safety, all those.
Yeah. How's Crosscut doing? I used to actually be on the board of Crosscut before the merger.
Before the merger,
yeah.
Okay.
And so it's been a while.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're thriving. You're doing well. You're maintaining your independence and identity. By the way, on this show, we have open, honest, frank discussion, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
how is Crosscut doing?
I think Crosscut
Media
is
itself, sometimes is under scrutiny right now, and so yeah, you go ahead.
I think, well, yeah, media on the whole, maybe not doing the best it's ever done, but Crosscut, I think we're doing all right. Yeah, we're a one umbrella organization, Cascade Public Media. We merged with KCTS9,
Right.
the PBS station, as you mentioned.
Did that change things? How long have you been there?
I've been there. It's been about 3.5, almost
Okay,
4
so
years,
you were
but
there
two
after.
two stints. Yeah, so I came in after the merger, 2018. Yeah, I mean,
Tell folks a little bit about Crosscut. So if they
yeah.
haven't heard of Crosscut, this is what you get from Crosscut.
Yeah, so we're a public media organization. We're covering a lot of stuff. We have TV shows about the environment, and we have city politics coverage from me. We have an investigations team that's looking into stuff like labor issues and sort of how COVID-19 like federal dollars are being used. We have great coverage down in Olympia, the legislature. So yeah, I think we're trying to just help inform the public. We're not coming at it from a particular angle. We're trying to give sort of deeper analysis of the important issues.
All right, well, I'm gonna get in your mix a little bit here because we don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
I'm glad you stopped by. Why is it important for you, or is it important for you, to do what you are about to do here as a moderator for this debate for District 4?
Yeah, I think it's important. I'm excited to jump in there and try to grill these would-be politicians. And yeah, I think it's important for the public as they get ready to vote in a couple of weeks here. Ballots are dropping next week in your mailboxes. I think it's important for people to understand who these people are, where they're coming from, and then, really what they want to do. It's one thing to say, we have a problem with crime, we have a problem with homelessness. It's another to say, I have these ideas for making progress in City Hall. I have these ideas for putting the dollars in the city budget behind these policies. And yeah, I hope we can, get in and get them to talk about those things tonight.
Now, I'm going to use your word. You said grill. That means the hot seat. From your perspective, is that your intention here? You want to find out information, and they're on the hot seat. Is that how you're approaching this as a moderator?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fairly friendly conversation. Although, we'll see if they start butting heads. They have different ideas for sure as politicians, but yeah, I think we got 3 moderators up there, and our goal is to, get beyond the talking points and really get into that nitty gritty.
Were you able to, again, we know there are some things that are just across Seattle where all of our communities are experiencing affordable housing, homelessness, crime, drugs. Are you able to go ahead and cue in more specifically on some issues that directly impact District 4 and the nuances of this redistricted community?
I think we are going to have to ask the candidates that question. That is definitely a goal, to get them talking about what they want to do for their district as district representatives.
I know you're limited on your time here. What if they don't? What do you do? Now, we've watched a couple of national debates, and we're on the internet, so my turned into a shit show. We want to get answers. It's tough on the candidates to answer a question in 60 seconds. How do you go about this process of what you call grilling when there's a limited amount of time, but you want to get away from the cookie cutter comments that they're prepared to make, that they're prepared to do? Because at the end of the day, we want an informed community to be able to make decisions about their vote.
Yeah, you're setting the bar high for us, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I think it'll just be key to it's going to be in those follow-up questions, to really sort of drill down and make sure we're getting into the D4 issues, into the sort of specifics of the big city issues, things like that.
All right. Well, District 4 is dependent on you.
I'll do my best.
Congratulations, Josh, and we look forward to this debate, and get the coals ready, man. Grill them.
All right.
Okay.
Nice chatting with you. I appreciate it.
Yep. Likewise. Okay, we're gonna get Steve in here because I know he had to take off, and I want to definitely have this conversation. How you doing, sir? There you go.
I'm doing great, Tony. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
I have to follow up Josh, but
Well, I'm excited to talk. Well, first, let's talk a little bit about why your background. Why are you here? Why are you involved in this?
I spent 30 years at KCTS 9 PBS affiliate, and in that time, I did a lot of multi-camera producing, and I did a lot of talk show and interview producing. So this is kind of in my blood.
Okay.
And when I stepped down and semi-retired, I wanted to do some volunteer work, and I think that civic debate is really important.
Yeah.
From the bottom up to the top.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the steering committee of the City Club Washington State Debate Coalition, just helping produce and make sure that things are ready to go, technically and content-wise.
This is number 3 of 4, and we haven't really talked about what it takes to pull something like this together from a technical standpoint. So for this 1 hour that's going to happen between 7 and 8, how many hours do you would you tell our audience that it takes to pull something like this off in an hour?
It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of logistics. First of all, we work.
I'm saying 100 hours.
Oh, I'm sure on several people's parts.
For this hour.
Yeah.
It's
finding venues, and this is a great venue.
By the way, we're at the University of Washington Hub. Is it conference room?
The Lyceum in the Hub.
The Lyceum.
Yeah. It's a nice room, and it's a nice acoustical room.
Yeah.
So, but finding venues, finding a production company, and PNTA has just been excellent so far. Getting the candidates to agree on dates. That's one of the hardest things that we do is we have to have set dates. Everybody has a different schedule. So we got to make sure that candidates, whether they're running for city council or next year, if they're running for governor or attorney general, they're going to commit to our dates for a debate. And then it's the technical thing, the cameras, the audio, the lighting, that's a technical project that a lot of people work on, but somebody has to sort of direct it. Somebody has to have the vision. So it takes a long time.
Well, let's. I'm going to get in the weeds about that a little bit. You have a truck that kind of supports this whole thing, right? And then there's cabling, and you mentioned audio and video, and there's folks behind us who are part of this setup here. You only see the 2 debate stands on the stage, but back here there's a whole row of people.
Yeah. It's a control room. And today
that's live remote control room.
Right. I don't know if you walked through Red Square. They're getting ready for game day, so there's huge control trucks out there that ESPN has to do a game. And back in the day, and especially in really large events, there's big control trucks that roll up and they start plugging in. We're not that elaborate, but it's the same idea. So we set up a control room, a portable control room, and then we run cabling to everything, run it back. So it's a lot of setup, and then it's a lot of testing. You can set up lights, you can light things, but does a human look good under those lights? We got to see that. Do they sound good? You're in radio, test that. There's just a lot of testing, planning. There's crew. So it gets kind of hairy sometimes.
And then you start at 7 o'clock.
And then there's people, talent. Or talent or candidates or whatever.
There's the candidates, there's the moderators,
journalists.
Again, just there's a lot that goes into this hour. So why did you volunteer to do this massive project? I mean, I have an idea. I think that who we elect as our Seattle City councilors is incredibly and vote, by the way. Everyone vote. If you're not registered to vote, you can still register to vote. And I'm figuring these are probably things that you're going to say that inspired you to be part of this. But I'm going to anyway. Why did you volunteer? Why are you volunteering your time to be part of this?
Well, I like production work.
Okay.
And I'm very interested in content in civic debate, whether it's on the city, regional, state, or national or international level. It's something that I pay attention to. And especially now, with as complicated and contentious as our world is, it's really important to hear debate from principals, from principal voices, and to hear from candidates and to hear points of view. So it's just something I believe in.
What district do you live in?
I live in, you mean city council district?
Yeah.
I think it's 3.
Okay.
So I live down by Rainier Beach, right above Rainier Beach.
Oh, District 2.
District 2.
District 2. Yeah. So have you heard anything, because you've been here, that you said, well, you know, I'm learning new things, which I think is one of the cool things about doing 4 of these debates. We're doing 5 because we did the District 2 debate. Have you learned anything that you said, hey, you know what? And I'm getting in your Kool-Aid here a little bit. I think this candidate, you know, is aligned with my issues. If I was in this district, I think I would vote for. Have you been able to do that at all? Or
I've definitely heard things that resonate with me. You know, it's challenging because I think some of the problems and issues that we have in this city of ours are very complex, very challenging, and it really is kind of hard to pick them apart. So I'm learning a lot. You know, this homelessness situation, gun violence. One thing I am aware of, and so I live in South Seattle, Southeast Seattle. A lot of folks in Southeast Seattle feel, you know, have maybe some different attitudes, different ideas about gun violence and what causes gun violence than somebody who might live in Sandpoint or North Seattle.
Yeah.
That's the diversity of our city. So I'm really learning a lot about issues.
Anything else you want to say to our audience about the work that you're doing here before I'm going to grab Matt over here and talk to him before he jumps up to moderate. And anything you want to say to our audience?
I just echo your idea that people really should vote, should register to vote, and not just this year. Next year is going to be a huge year for everybody. Make sure that you turn out and vote.
All right.
All right.
Sir. Good talking.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, Matt. You can set those right here. Hey. Good talking to you.
How you doing,
again.
Tony?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good. Ready for one of these debates and see if I can throw a few firecrackers in there, you know?
Back again. By the way, I thought you did an awesome job the last time.
D1, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
We got a couple of different candidates.
Yep.
You know, the issues again kind of go across the board, you know,
Right.
whatever district you're in, but there are nuances for each district.
Yes.
You know.
And I think the candidates here, from what I've heard,
tech guy and an activist.
Yeah, well, and you know,
they're more than that.
Well, but they've been doing forums for a while, so now they've gotten to know each other with the answers to many of the same questions that people ask. They know how the other's going to respond, and so I've heard that they like to talk over each other a little bit compared to the D1 candidates.
Okay.
So we'll see. Maybe there's a potential now for a little more give and take in this hour that we're going to have tonight.
Are you looking for that interaction?
I am totally looking for that. I think other than, people want to hear what the candidates have to say, but they also don't want to be sitting on their butts for an hour watching this without any kind of fireworks. We kind of expect that now. We're looking for it. Not that you go to a NASCAR race to wait for a crash. They're inevitable. And when candidates have a debate, it should be inevitable. It's inevitable they have some sort of quarrel over a certain issue. So I'm going to try and find what that issue is where they're polar opposites. Most of these candidates really aren't, except on a couple subjects, and see if we can stoke that disagreement right there.
Do you think that the candidates come into this with the thought in mind, I'm going to say as little as I can? So, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't think they'll say
to be
safe. Yeah. Okay.
In this, and part of your role is this is what you said last time. You said you want to mix it up.
Right. Yeah, I do.
And tell me if you think that now that you've done one and you're sitting here another one, is that your feeling? Do you think that the candidates come in, hey, fire some questions at me, I want to do this, or they're like, I'm trying to play the safe role?
I think my role today, and each moderated group is a little bit different. We talk among ourselves, and what do we want to try and do in these debates? And I think my role, not to be the pit bull, but I'm going to try and make really succinct, short follow-ups so that they're really simple. I mean, I'm going to ask the candidates. I'm going to tell you the first question.
Okay.
Is Seattle safe? Really short.
Yeah.
And then they can see where they go. And if they don't even try to answer a yes or no, that's a yes or no question, and then say yes, why or why not, we'll go right after and say, you didn't answer the question. Is Seattle safe? Because people want to hear, people who I think who really don't follow debates and may want to tune in on this one, but know some of the issues, they want to hear really succinct answers and not somebody beating around the bush.
Yeah.
They can tell that. So our job is to try and get them to answer the questions. And we're going to try it again tonight.
All right. How much due diligence have you done? You know where I'm coming from, Matt. On District 4. Again, there's been redistricting. It's a different district. I don't know if the candidates are even familiar, with the new lines that have been drawn. It's kind of a tough issue. That didn't happen until August, I think, or something.
I think the lines that between District 4 and 5 and 4, 5, and 6 may have changed a little bit, but it wasn't as dramatic as adding like Soto and Georgetown, and like in District 1, where it was a whole different type of neighborhood, industrial,
and in District 2, we added the Chinatown International District.
Yeah, there again, that I'm trying to remember, that was bifurcated by right down Yesler before. I'm pleading ignorance here on where District 2 is on the north side, northwest side. Because you had that where it's Yesler, it was still left of. Well, I'm talking about District 2. Let's go back to District 4.
Yeah.
District 4.
And that's one of the things is because 4, 5, and 6 is there haven't. I don't know. I don't want to say they're not as dramatic because I don't live in these districts. The folks who live in these districts might feel differently.
They might feel differently. I think you still have the main corridor of like Lake City Way in District 5 and things like that, where that's a core street. In District 4, you have, and as it butts up against 6, you have Wallingford, you have kind of the Fremont, you have the U District, Ravenna. The issues, I think, are the differences between 4, 5, and 6. The main issues are not that big, in my impression. One of the questions I want to ask about is transportation, because the streets are so narrow there. They want to increase more bike lanes, maybe, but there's no capacity. A lot of the development that the city is planning, they're not requiring developers to have additional parking because it's real expensive. That's part of the reasons they want to make fast track some of the housing. They don't have to, developers don't have to produce parking for their new spots. Well, that makes it even worse if you're going to take out one of these narrow streets, a whole lane of parking to put in a bike lane. So that's a trade-off, and that hopefully I'll get that question in. But that's kind of an issue I think that's happening in District 4.
And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you right now, because you do your due diligence. And again, why is it important to you to be able to sit on this panel and ask questions of the candidates?
Well, they have to be, I mean, a candidate, even though they're essentially volunteering for the job, he can wield an enormous amount of power, and in the city of Seattle, enormous amount of money. I mean, talking about a $6 billion budget. They're going to be short in 2025 on that money that's coming in. They have a lot of responsibility, a lot of social. They can change some of the social ills because of what their position is. So I think the people who want to have that power and control of over all this money should be held accountable even at the candidate level, where they're running for office. They should be able to have some key answers to those key questions that we've been dealing with. And that Seattle, there's a microscope on Seattle because of its politics around the country. People know about Seattle and Portland, and they're going to see how this council vote may change the politics that's lasted for the last 4 years. Will we really go maybe a little more moderate than far left as what the nation thinks it is here in Seattle? Which, if you live in Seattle, you wouldn't say it's far left.
And that's what I'm wondering about the questions. I think I asked you this before, but as we move into, again, District 4 and District 5, do you think that there is room for a more conservative or moderate candidate on the Seattle City Council?
If you look at the polls, I'm going to bring up a poll that just came out. It was done by the chamber. They did 700 respondents in the first 2 weeks of September. EMC did the polling. And, I mean, let me just put this one stat you're going to hear from me out there. It said that 81% of the respondents agree that Seattle's hands-off approach using fentanyl and meth in public has contributed to the rampant street crime and hampered downtown's recovery. 81%. That's an overwhelming number that people believe in Seattle they haven't had control over the fentanyl and meth crisis on the street, and that's leading to the street crime and the public safety, which is the number one issue by most polls in the city of Seattle. So those are huge numbers. To answer your question, whether or not that could mean more of a conservative or a middle of the road candidate for the city of Seattle, we'll see. I think there could be. You have a candidate. You have two candidates, like District 1, one that's supported by developer money and outside money. Another one that's very pro-union, kind of the way it's always been in Seattle. And those candidates who don't have the King County Labor Council endorsement or a union endorsement, they tend to fall off. I mean, they tend to win. And the ones who don't get that don't win. And the ones who don't get those endorsements tend to be more right-leaning candidates. And we've seen it in past elections where you think there's going to be a middle-of-the-road candidate that's going to go all the way. They don't when it comes down to the last two.
I'd love to spend more time talking to you, Matt. I'm looking forward to it. I know you got to get ready to do the debate here, but share with our folks, specifically our District 4 folks who are going to be tuning in for this debate, or maybe they're watching this and they haven't seen the debate yet because we're going to replay this. What are you looking to do in regards to getting information, getting the candidates to answer questions? What's your approach to this?
My approach,
and talk to the audience.
My approach, Tony, is that I want them to answer the simple question, the litmus test question: is Seattle safe? Do we have enough cops? Is fentanyl and meth really the scourge they say it is and causing all the crime on the streets of Seattle? Very simple questions like that they don't have to be, that don't need a big belabored answer. It's kind of a gut check question. So tonight, I'm hoping that I'll get some of those questions in. We'll see if they answer them.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thank you for what you do.
Okay. We'll see you.
Okay. You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is our debate coverage. We're at debate for District 4. That's going to be taking place here at 7 o'clock. And we just had an opportunity to talk with Matt Markovich of KIRO News Radio and kind of get some insight into his approach to moderating this discussion. Now, if you haven't registered to vote, you need to do that. That's a big part of hopefully while you're watching and gaining information, because we want you to be a more informed voter. So effective January 1st of 2022, if you've been convicted of a felony in Washington state, another state, or a federal court, your right to vote is restored. That's right. Let me say it again. If you've been convicted of a felony in Washington state, another state, a federal court, your right to vote is restored as long as you are not currently serving a DOC sentence in total confinement. Now, going forward, voting rights are immediately restored upon release from prison, regardless of community supervision status. All you need to do is register to vote using one of the methods above. So, how do you register to vote in the state of Washington? Well, you got to be a citizen of the United States. You got to be a legal resident of Washington, and you have to be 18 years old. But if you're 16 or 17, you can sign up as a future voter and be automatically registered to vote when you qualify. It's called pre-registration. So if you're 16 or 17, you want to get this done. You want to make sure that once you turn 18, because you plan on being a future voter, you can actually pre-register to vote. So future voters, again, under the age of 18, you will be eligible to vote. And there's some time frames here. October 30th is when you have to mail in your vote. Now you can actually go all the way up to the 7th, but your vote will your ballot will be a provisional ballot. But until October 30th, you can mail it in. You can do whatever you do, and so you still got some time to register to vote. You have a couple of weeks to make that happen. Just doing some testing right now, and we've got some candidates who are getting here. I know that they were going to get here a little bit late. We've been able to get our candidates on board for the pre-debate show the last couple of times, but we may have to wait to have them join us for the post-debate show, which we'll be bringing you as well immediately following the debate. The debate's going to start at 7. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. Again, the candidates for District 4, Ron Davis, District 4 Seattle City Council candidate, and then Maritza Rivera, District 4 Seattle City Council candidate. We're at the University of Washington Hub Ballroom. This is a partnership with Seattle City Club, Q13, King 5, Converge Media. Shout out to Converge. And we are Rainier Avenue Radio .world. I'm not sure if Daniel has this, but Daniel's usually putting on top of it. We have football games tomorrow. And we broadcast high school football. Yep, see, I knew it. We've got O'Day taking on Ballard, and that will be Rick or Juan Cotto, along with John Yasutaki, doing play-by-play and color commentary. O'Day taking on Ballard, and that's at 5 o'clock. That game is at Memorial Stadium. We'll be bringing it to you live right here from Rainier Avenue Radio .world. And then at 7:45, we've got our next game, which is Rainier Beach taking on Garfield. This is a rivalry game. So throw the records out the window. This is where guys who've grown up together play against each other. And that is at 7:45, and that will be our very own Rick Dupree and Seahawk legend Edwin Bailey, who will be doing the commentary on that game. So that's what we've got going on tomorrow. All right. Have a seat.
Thank you. Oh, where am I looking?
Oh,
There.
yeah, you're looking at here and put those on. And at Rainier Avenue Radio, one of the things about us that we pride ourselves on is our flexibility to adapt to any situation, anytime.
Oh, nice. Which is how you're broadcasting from here today.
And so tell me who you are.
I'm Ron Davis. I live.
You're Ron Davis.
That's right. Yeah, I'm one of the candidates. I'm running for Seattle City
Awesome.
Council.
Good to have you here, man. I knew the schedule was tight, and thank you for joining us for this pre-debate
Oh my gosh, of course, yeah.
one of the things that we've had the candidates on at every one, and so I knew it was kind of tight today. So I really appreciate you coming on the pre-debate show. We can be a little bit more informal.
Nice.
And
Can I tell you that I really wish I was getting up on that debate stage with your voice coming out of my mouth? God, that's amazing.
Well, you might not.
You do not have a face made for radio, but you do have a voice made for radio.
You might not say that after I get in your Kool-Aid.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Oh God. All right, let's do it. Lay it on me. Yeah.
District 4.
Yeah.
And most of the issues that we've talked about with these debates are pretty consistent. Folks are saying affordable housing, homelessness, crime, drugs. District 4, of course, has its own nuanced issues and concerns, and there has been a redistricting.
Yes, there has.
That's taken place. I want to talk with you, or Phil, get that answer from you. How has the redistricting impacted or affected this District 4 community and changed?
Yeah.
things?
So, the biggest changes, the biggest actually geographic change, which has affected maybe priorities a little bit, is that we don't have East Lake anymore, but we got a lot of Wedgwood. We got all of Wedgwood. And I think
different communities.
Very different. East Lake is much more urban. It's on the water. It's got a big road running right through the middle of it. So there's lots of controversy around that. Very different story, right? Whereas Wedgwood is a neighborhood, embedded in other neighborhoods, right? It's not right next to a freeway or a big waterway or a huge roadway. And so different set of concerns. And, the main thing I am hearing from Wedgwood people that I would say is particular to them, there was an action there earlier this year around a giant tree, like a 200-year-old cedar tree called Luma. And there was an attempt by some developers to knock it down. To cut it down to build some townhomes. And so the community came together and said, hey, there's a way to build these townhomes without cutting it down. And it was very mobilizing to the community. And I'd say that has really lit a fire in that community around tree preservation and tree canopy. And there's a lot of folks there who are very pro housing, but want us to be thoughtful and not treat trees as the enemy of housing. And, are also real animated by the fact that, the Master Builders Association wrote the tree legislation that makes it easier to cut down, and put over $100,000 of money into my opponent.
So we know that in the national election, everybody's well aware of what's going on, but the local elections, at least as far as I'm concerned, are really important.
Yeah.
For District 4, what do you live in District 4?
I do. Yeah, and I have to. You would have to.
Yeah.
You I live right on the edge of Roosevelt, Ravenna, and the U District.
What do you see that you would like to share with your constituents and just live in District 4 right now? That are some issues, and it may be the homeless issue, it may be the affordable housing, but that's probably different than it is for District 2. What are some of the things that you want to make sure you get across to those who are listening right now, that let folks know this is a guy who's familiar with us, who knows what's going on?
We've knocked 13,000 doors, and I don't know what my own personal count is, but it's got to be well over 5. And so very familiar with District 4. My children are in school in Bryant and Eckstein. And I would say, the concerns in District 4 do match the city as a whole, in the sense that homelessness is the number 1 problem and public safety is the number 2 problem. Probably housing costs, number 3. I think where we are different than maybe some other districts is we have significant disparities between different parts of our district. So places like Laurelhurst and Windermere on the water, many $3-4 million mansions, and then places like the Ave that have some of the biggest concentrations of poverty in the city. So there's a lot of I think misunderstanding between parts of the district. And then I would say that outside of downtown, where there and maybe Capitol Hill, where there is this challenge too, many of our districts don't have the kinds of commercial thoroughfares where you see a lot of behavioral health issues, and we have that with the Ave. So while we have some really great programming down there, doing outreach, getting people into housing, getting people into treatment, the Ave in the U District is a place that has attracted a lot of folks who have been who've been lost through the cracks because we've deinstitutionalized so much. And so there's a lot of residents who have this feeling of, hey, like I used to go to the Ave. Obviously, we hear the, hey, I used to go downtown, but you're hearing that from everyone. But hey, I used to go to the Ave. It's just down the street. I love this little restaurant, but I'm uncomfortable. I feel unsafe. What are you going to do about it? That's kind of very district 4 specific. There's also some very specific issues around a set of roads, Sandpoint Way, 70th, where cars just go too fast because we've engineered those roads for speed. And so there's a lot of fear around for families, right? Crossing streets, etc.
You only get 60 seconds to answer questions.
I know.
And,
well, hopefully they don't ask me that question.
More, you can add a little more context to it here. But I know you got to get ready to go. Tell us, what are the differences between you and your candidate, Maritza Rivera?
Yeah.
What are the things that stand out that you would like to share? Like this is where I'm at. This is where she's at.
Yeah. The biggest difference is funding. So we both talk about all the things we want, but her plan is to cut more than $200 million from our general fund, which supports policing, public safety, affordable housing, and social services. And my plan is to not cut, but to fill in the hole that we're facing next year and raise additional progressive tax revenue to actually deliver the stuff that we stand up there and say we support. The other big thing is although we both believe in staffing up the police department, she's saying she can do something like 20x what SPD says is possible given the national hiring market. I think I have a much more fact-based plan, and the fact that 17,000 corrections workers and folks in the diversion space, all the sort of leaders in that space, Moms Demand Action, all these folks have come out for me. I think speaks volumes.
Would you consider yourself closely aligned with conservative, moderate, centrist, progressive?
I am a progressive Democrat, so I'm not a leftist. I don't believe any sort in like Trotskyism. I'm not aligned with Shama Sawant, but I'm more like a Teresa Mosqueda, just a progressive Democrat. I really like Elizabeth Warren.
Do you think that there is room for a moderate or a conservative Seattle City candidate in District 4, District 5?
Yeah, I mean, we're currently represented by a pretty moderate candidate, depending on the particular issue. And we have a number of moderate candidates, and we even have some candidates who've embraced some kind of surprisingly right-wing things around the city. So, it depends, and the people hopefully will pay close attention to the issues and decide based on that. I think it's tough when you've got, $230,000 in independent expenditures coming from, big Trump MAGA donors and the builders trying to swamp the race for Maritza Rivera to get to the truth. I mean, King County Democrats put out a statement today saying that the Rivera campaign needs to stop gaslighting and making false assertions about my campaign. So the real challenge is actually just getting to voters. I think when voters pay attention, they vote very intelligently and thoughtfully.
All right. I'm going to give you an opportunity here to say whatever you want to say to those who are listening right now who maybe didn't watch the debate but came back and watched this or about to watch the debate. What would you like to say to those in District 4 right now?
Yeah,
whatever you want.
My priority is making Seattle a place people can start a career, raise a family, and age safely and comfortably in their homes where they can thrive. I have a background in public policy. I won policy awards at Harvard Law School. I've been a CEO. I'm good at delivering things, but I am rooted in a progressive worldview, and I think we need to treat people well, and I think that's the way to get there.
Than's for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A few minutes until you've got to.
No, it's a nice way to spend the time before I'm waiting to get up on stage.
And I appreciate you letting me get in your mix a little bit.
Yeah, you weren't too rough on me.
But
maybe it's just that smooth voice.
Where are you from?
I grew up in the Portland area myself. Okay. My mom grew up here. My grandfather grew up here. My great grandparents grew up here.
Okay.
But when my mom was a teenager, my grandpa followed a job to Portland, and then just a few years later, unfortunately, my mom was still a teenager when she got pregnant with me. But I found my way back here. So I've been in Seattle 10 years, Northwest, my whole life except for graduate school.
Okay, I am going to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
And it's a sincere, authentic question, so you answer it however you want to. Why are you running for office?
Yeah. So,
not the long.
Yeah.
Why?
It's that my parents were teenagers, and getting a toehold into the middle class required affordable housing, and that door is closed. And I want to open that door for other people in Seattle. And I want that door especially to be open for people who don't look like me, because the walls are twice as high for them.
All right. Well, get ready to do your thing.
I will. Have a nice time talking to my opponent, and good luck, and I'll see you after the debate.
All right.
It's nice to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you. And that was an opportunity to talk to Ron Davis again. District 4, do we have Maritza? Okay. So maybe we will catch Maritza Rivera at the post debate show. But we sure thank Ron for coming up and joining us for the pre-debate show. And so we're about 10 minutes away, Mr. Bellis. So we're going to wrap it up from here at the University of Washington Hub Ballroom, the pre-debate show. And we'll see you for the post-debate show, but we will be carrying the actual debate live as well. So we'll see you a little bit later.
1, 2, get down! What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvidal Mara, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not shouting "Badia" at city council meetings, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not being reprimanded by traffic cops, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
Hey, this is Paul Pearson. I've hosted the R&B show Star Time since the very beginning of Rainier Avenue Radio. And after years of featuring tracks from the 50s through the 80s, Star Time now plays R&B and hip-hop from the 1990s as well. A whole half-century of soul, funk, hip-hop, and more on Star Time, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.
The beat of the Fox with nastiness is back on K-Fox Night Beat.
Yo, what's the deal? It's the legendary Hall of Fame DJ Mixmaster Ice. UTFO.
What's up? Who do you thought this is? This is Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And this is Terry Lewis.
And I'm Grand Mixer GMS.
What's up, y'all? This is DJ Third Degree.
This is JJ Hudson from the High Children family.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memory.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
That's right. Illinois. Peace.
Hi, I'm Paul Pearson of Star Time. Did you know that back in the 1930s, Rainier Avenue Radio operated out of a supply closet in the Columbia City Sea First Bank? Well, times have changed and so have we. Now you can hear all the great Rainier Avenue Radio shows on our mobile app for Android and iPhone. It's completely free on the Google Play Store and the iPhone App Store. The Rainier Avenue Radio app.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Generational wealth is knowledge, whether knowing how to heal yourself from plants, knowing how to stretch your body right, and knowing what to do when you need to take time or space to get to know yourself and to grow as a person. And knowledge is something that can be passed down from your abuelitas to your mom and just to all the knowledgeable, powerful women in my lineage, at least.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Create your generational wealth for you and the future of your families.
Different rules apply when it gets this late. You know what I mean? It's like after hours.
Whatever gets you through the night.
Hello, I'm an unpaid spokesman for DJ Soto Vaci. I'd like to invite you to listen to his free-form music show. It's popular music the way it was never intended to be heard. Whatever gets you through the night, late nights, here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Whatever gets you through the night.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, all day Saturday. This is Edward Bailey, Bulldog Blue, Jazz from the Capitals.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Capitals. Big Pop.
Start time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. Start time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae hour, K-Fox night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the box.
Fresh juice, the money.
Myself, Too Many. Thanks,
Taylor Hart.
Spencia, the Northwest Rap Gang.
DJ Medina. Jackson. Northwest Rap.
Sergio Lacour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio Lacour. Go to the phone line. Tell them who we are.
Sea Monster Radio. Mojang. It's your
We're live. Welcome to Mojang Mondays. This is KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mojang Mondays.
Just my God is inspiration all day and all night. Saturday. Rainier Avenue Radio.org.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun.
And happy to welcome you to both campus speaker at the Hub Lyceum.
Fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
How would COVID vaccines work in your body? Here are 3 things to know. Number 1, a vaccine is basically a training session for the immune system. Vaccines teach the immune system to look for the key features of a virus. So when a virus does show up, it's ready to fight it off. Number 2, a vaccine gives your body a plan to recognize the virus. Then your immune system starts preparing by making antibodies, or fighter cells, that stay in your blood as protection in case the virus tries to invade. What this means is you get immunity against the disease without having to get sick first. Number 3, when enough people's bodies know how to fight off a virus, it has nowhere to go. That slows the spread. When people get a vaccine, we're able to stop the spread quicker and get closer to ending the pandemic. To learn more, go to covidvaccinewa.org. A message from the state of Washington.
Wash your hands, don't touch
Hello,
your
everyone
face,
in the
wipe
audience.
things
Thank you
down.
so much for coming. I'm Hannah Kim with Fox 13. I am one of the moderators for this event. So again, thank you for coming. We have about less than 1 minute to broadcast. So I just wanted to let you guys all know. And I'm going to say this during the live broadcast, but please hold your applause for the whole. I know it's tempting to applaud when you agree with something or not. Just keep it as quiet as possible. And at the end, when this is done, you guys can cheer and applaud as loud as possible. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate that. So thank you so much. We're going to have fun tonight and hopefully get a lot of good answers out of our candidates today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be going live shortly. 10 seconds. Thank you.
With more information, Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hello and welcome to the District 4 City Council debate, coming to you live from the University of Washington Lyceum. I'm Hannah Kim with Fox 13.
I'm Josh Cohen with Crosscut. And I'm Matt Markovich with KIRO News Radio.
This debate series has been organized by the Seattle City Club in districts where no incumbent is running. The Seattle City Club is a nonprofit organization dedicated to informing, connecting, and engaging the public to strengthen the civic health of our region. Thanks to our sponsors, Comcast, GSBA, Puget Sound Energy, and the Henry M. Jackson Foundation. We also want to thank our media partners and our production partner, PNTA, for making this broadcast possible.
And we want to thank our live audience here in the Lyceum at the Hub at the University of Washington. They've agreed to stay silent and civil during the discussion and debate tonight. No cheers, no boos. They'll hold their applause set for the very beginning and at the very end.
But you can follow along wherever you are on social media, on the social media platform of your choice. Just use the hashtag #SEALEX. That's SEALEX. Now it's time to meet our candidates. And here's the time where you can applaud. Introducing Ron Davis and Maritza Rivera.
Here's the format our candidates will follow during the debate. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. We'll ask an initial question. Both candidates will have 1 minute to answer, and our panel will then lead a follow-up discussion and then go on to the next topic before moving on. So we flipped a coin. Maritza Rivera won that, and we're going to go with you, and you've decided to go first. So you have 90 seconds to go with your opening statement. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here this evening. I am the mom of two daughters at Ingram High School, where there was a school shooting, sadly, last fall, where a student got killed and shot inside the school. And as I was in the parking lot waiting for my daughters to come out of lockdown, they were in lockdown for hours. I was terrified, and I thought the public safety situation in Seattle is such that I can't sit around and wait, and I can't sit around and watch what's happening. I never thought that would happen here in Seattle, of all places. I grew up in New York City, in the Bronx, in a low-income, predominantly Black and brown neighborhood where I didn't feel safe a day in my life. And I came to Seattle 22 years ago because it was so safe and vibrant. And to have this happen at my child's school was really a tragic for me. And obviously for the child that lost his life and the child that actually did the shooting. You know, when I talk to voters at the doors at the D4, they're concerned about public safety as well. That's their number one concern. They're concerned about home break-ins and car break-ins. The small businesses are concerned also about break-ins and the situation with having to replace windows and doors. And, you know, folks don't want to go downtown because they don't feel as safe. We got to get back Seattle to the safe and vibrant place that I moved to 22 years ago. And we're going to do that. If I am elected on the city council, I will work with the other city council members and the mayor and residents to make that happen. Thank you.
I'm Ron Davis. It's great to be here. I am running to make it so Seattle's a place that people can start a career, raise a family, and age happily and safely at home without breaking the bank. I am the product of a teen pregnancy, and so I have a lot of passion around this because even though my parents were minimum wage workers, they were able to get a toehold in the middle class because housing was affordable. That toehold got my sister and I to college, and I eventually went on to Harvard Law School, where I graduated with honors. I won awards for public policy work, and I later spun out a company from MIT and with some other folks also from Stanford in the tech world. I've been a CEO and a deal maker or a consultant helping other people, other companies with their enterprise sales efforts ever since. I've also been doing public policy work as a volunteer for more than a decade in things like through the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association, the University YMCA, and at the state level, working on passing legislation for transit, housing, and climate. I do want to say, I'm a policy nerd, and I hope that we can focus on that tonight. And I want to acknowledge that the King County Democratic Party released a statement today calling for my opponent to stop using MAGA-style gaslighting and outright fabrications against me on my platform, and to remedy serious concerns about campaign financial disclosures. Look, I have not wanted to have those conversations in our forum. I really want us to stay focused on policy tonight, what's good for this city, what will make this city thrive, what will make our families thrive, and what will make it a safe, prosperous place to grow.
We can all agree with that. Well, thank you for your opening statements about not taking this personal. Let's keep it to the policies as much as possible. I'm going to ask you this question to learn a little bit more about you guys. This is a pivotal time for Seattle, a city facing a lot of challenges. What makes you better equipped than your opponent when it comes to policy ideas and things that you are going to do for the city? I will remind you, you will have time for rebuttal, so please allow your candidate to fully speak and get that 60 seconds. We're going to start with you, Ron, on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I won awards at Harvard Law School for doing policy work and I've been doing policy work for years, specifically in housing, homelessness, climate, and transportation. Those are the core things that we deal with here in Seattle, as well as safety. I'm also a graduate of Harvard Law School. I've also been a really effective leader and deal maker in my career. So everything I've touched has gone pretty darn well. I've left a wake of really successful companies or departments, and I've also left really strong relationships at all the places I've worked, built coalitions to get complex deals done across organizations, across departments, the kind of work that you actually have to do to be functional on city council. My opponent had 26 of her 40 former employees sign a letter saying that she created a toxic work environment, made it very difficult to do their work at the city of Seattle, and shouldn't be trusted with public money. I think the contrast could not be clearer in terms of ability to deliver public policy at the city level.
Thank you. I just want to address that I've been endorsed by Mayor Harrell. I am very proud of the work I did at the Office of Arts and Culture. I have a lot of respect for the employees there. What makes me better equipped is I have 30 years of public service. Having graduated from law school, I had the opportunity to work for President Clinton as liaison to the Hispanic community across the country, where I worked on a myriad of public policy issues. As the president was crafting policy, I worked with community to ensure that their needs were being met within that policy that was created. I've also worked for a city council member, Tom Rasmussen. I've worked for the ACLU in town post 9/11 on a Know Your Rights campaign education when Middle Eastern communities were getting targeted by the FBI. I've worked for two mayoral administrations. I have lots of experience with public policy and budgeting that I can offer to this position.
Is there anything else you guys would like to say before we move on? Okay. So the violent crime rate in Seattle reached a 15-year high last year, according to the Seattle Police Department. Public safety is top of mind for many voters. Some attendees submitted questions and asking what you'll do to reduce crime. So on that topic, I'm going to pass it on to Matt Markovich.
So my first question, or our panel's first question, is a fairly simple one. Is Seattle safe? And if it's not, why is it not working? But if there is some elements that are working, what are they? So my question to candidate Davis first.
Seattle's not safe enough. Too many people are dying of gun violence. Far more people are dying of fentanyl overdoses. And The second half of the question was, why is it not safe and what can we
What is working? What is not?
Yeah, I mean, we have programs that work really effectively, like community passageways, which are extremely good at reducing gun violence, particularly among youth. And we chronically underserve them every year when we talk about budgets and accountability, but we don't actually fund the stuff that works. We have programs like LEAD and CoLEAD that are really effective at getting people off the streets, stopping consuming, and into recovery. And actually long-term recovery, extremely effective, started by Lisa Dugard, who won the MacArthur Genius Award for that. And she's working to architect threading that in better with our police department. We have programs like that that are very effective, but they are chronically underfunded. The leaders of LEAD and Community Passageways have both endorsed me. You know, we have to scale those things up. We obviously have to try to deal with our staffing issues at the police department. But you know, we are way down. So we also are going to have to start to manage that portfolio better with things like behavioral health first responders and camera enforcement with traffic.
Candidate Rivera.
Yes, thank you. We have a huge public safety problem in Seattle. We have very high 911 response times. The 2020 decision by the city council to defund the police was a huge mistake, and it's made the situation, our public safety situation, worse since the pandemic. 911 response times are 12 to 15 minutes about. We need to get them down to 9 to 5 minutes. When someone is in crisis, we need to get help to them right away, not wait 15 minutes for someone to show up. We have a huge open air drug market crisis in the city, in the D4 on University Avenue, for instance, and of course downtown, all of 3rd Avenue, and we need to shut that down. I was glad to see a drug possession law passed to shut down open drug use. It's also an issue on our buses. Folks don't.
Yeah, can you answer the question? Is it safe, basically?
It's not safe at the moment. We're having a huge public safety crisis.
Again, a real quick follow-up then. In your own district, is there a place you will not walk at night? Start with Candidate Rivera.
Yeah, I wouldn't walk at night on the University Avenue, and I wouldn't walk at night at Ravenna Cohen Park.
Candidate Davis.
Yeah, in the parks, in the darkest parts of Ravenna and Cowan, I don't as well. It's also as well as certain parts of Magnuson Park that are remote from the housing. And there are more places like the Ave that I wouldn't advise my kids to go at night either. Or
right. One more. I have another question just on regarding public safety. Now, yet for years, advocates of the unhoused say government and public should not conflate crime with homelessness. Now, property crime and homelessness were the two of the three top public safety concerns among 2 community surveys done by SPD in 2022. What policies would you implement to reduce the nexus of crime and homelessness that's cited in that report? What policies would you do to reduce the nexus of homelessness and crime?
Is it her turn to go first?
Yes, sorry. Candidate Rivera.
Oh, yes. Well, it's inhumane to leave people living on the streets where they're being preyed upon by drug dealers. There's at some of the most dangerous encampments, drug dealing, sex trafficking, and gun violence. And so there is a nexus there. We need to bring people indoors. So I support permanent supportive housing with wraparound services, but we also we don't have enough units, so we need to have temporary housing solutions for folks, like sheltering, tiny homes.
So housing is the main answer for you, correct?
Housing and also the drug possession law to shut down the drug dealers.
Candidate Davis?
Drug dealers.
Yeah, so the nexus tends to exist at 2 spots where people who are unhoused are the most likely to be victims of crime, and a subset of the unhoused, the visibly unhoused, who have chronic behavioral issues, who tend to commit lots of sort of petty thefts and be in and out of jail. How do we address this? We know that permanent supportive housing, tiny homes, programming like LEAD to get people recovering from their addictions that drive them to make poor decisions are the most effective evidence-based ways to address this, and that is what I support.
So housing first, real quick. Housing first, you agree or disagree?
Yes. Yeah.
Candidate Rivera? Housing first?
You need housing with services, but you also need temporary housing in the absence of the permanent housing wraparound services. You can't leave people living on streets.
Agreed.
So as we know, a lot of 911 calls, not enough police officers, but some of the 911 calls going out are rushing to fentanyl overdoses. Fentanyl is posing a grave danger, not just for users, but so many in the community as well. So outside of educational campaigns and Narcan, what specific policy would you sponsor to decrease the flow of fentanyl into the city?
One of the challenges that fentanyl is actually made in the city. We have the ability to do some enforcement here, but unfortunately, because we don't manage like federal crimes, we don't, of course, have the ability to do most of the prosecution of actual real drug trafficking. But I think actually infiltrating the rings is key. I think staffing up the police department as best we can is key. I also think that in the end, demand management is the best way to stop it, because we know that when we actually get people into recovery, we have programs, like I said, LEAD, that are extremely effective at getting people into recovery. And when the demand's not there, the supply moves on to places that are more profitable. So it's a mix of enforcement and actually getting people treated, because if people aren't treated and housed, because when people are unhoused, they become much more likely to become addicted to these substances. So this is the other piece, is if we don't address our housing crisis, we're going to keep pushing people into trauma and making them more likely to be drivers.
I want to go back to what you just said about managing demand. How do you do that? Fentanyl is such an addictive drug. How do you manage demand when somebody is hooked? How do you do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, so this programs like LEAD are extremely effective at getting people into recovery, moving them onto Suboxone and off of fentanyl.
I've specifically asked for new specific policies. LEAD has been around for a long time.
Yes.
I understand that you're
scaling
saying
LEAD, but scaling LEAD would be a new specific policy.
I understand that it's underfunded, as you said earlier. Is there any specific new policies that
no,
you
I would
put
rather
on the
stick with
table?
evidence-based policy that we know works.
So you would only go with LEAD?
I don't know that I would only go with it, but I've not got some zany off the wall new idea. I'd start with the things that I know work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, to decrease the flow of fentanyl, well, first of all, the drug possession law, which I referenced earlier, is a really important tool, because the open air drug markets are an issue, and so is the drug dealing that's happening in the encampments, where folks are getting hooked on fentanyl to begin with. So it is an important tool to get drug dealers off the streets and to funnel people into services, because people do need drug addiction services. And so, that's what we need to put focus on. And I think that is a great tool to do it. And then, of course, we need to hire more police officers to address the issue.
So I didn't hear anything specifically new. Is there anything that you would put on the table for fentanyl specifically?
Yeah, I'm open to considerations of new policies to try to address the fentanyl crisis. Obviously, this is a crisis that's around the country, and I think that everyone is grappling with the impacts, and everyone is trying to figure out, how can we stem this epidemic that we're seeing, the fentanyl crisis that we're seeing, and the drug deaths that are happening every day from fentanyl.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Matt, Matt has a follow-up?
No, go ahead.
I had and it's not a retort to her, but I'm curious, would you consider overdose prevention centers new? They're not new in New York, but they would be new in terms of actually putting them in place here.
So do you have a question about them?
I had a follow-up question,
wanna
but
move
we're
on.
not doing you guys, we're not allowing you guys to ask each other questions.
Oh, I meant you, but okay. Yeah, fair enough.
If you have an answer, if you want to elaborate, I can give you 20 more seconds.
Yeah, I'll
Have
just
an
say I
answer,
do
but-
support overdose prevention centers, which are evidence-based ways to clean up neighborhoods, drastically reduce drug deaths, and they're an extremely efficient way to get people to move into treatment. Eric, I'm totally blanking. Adams is doing this to great effect in New York.
So my follow-up was real quickly regarding the drug law that city council just passed. There was a previous version and a new version. If you were a city council member right now, which version would you have voted for?
I would have voted for either version, because we need the tool. I think that the original version, it was of concern because of this issue with not wanting to prosecute drug users. But I think that the mayor and the city attorney were very clear that that was not the intent of the original law. And so I think with the second version, they made sure to very much specify that it's not about jailing drug users. It's about really having a mechanism for funneling them into services and making sure that we're prosecuting drug dealers.
Kennedy Davis.
Yeah, the first one wasn't written particularly well. The second one was better. I appreciated the guidance toward treatment. My feelings about this are mixed, because in the end, our past practices has also been mixed. So my support for it in the future is really going to be dependent on, are we actually delivering the treatment promises that the mayor says he wants to deliver, or are we actually throwing people in jail for this that his critics claim? So I think the key for us is to actually scale up those services, as I've mentioned several times, so I won't belabor the point.
Okay, so for more than 10 years, the Seattle Police Department was under a federal consent decree, as we know. Most of the provisions were removed this year, signaling significant progress by SPD when it comes to use of force and accountability, but some say the work is far from over. So for this first question, let's turn to Josh Cohen.
Yeah, so in 2018, the Seattle City Council voted to approve a new SPOG union contract, upsetting many police accountability advocates who said the contract weakened the city's ability to discipline and fire officers for misconduct. The next City Council, of which one of you will be a member, is likely to be voting on a new SPOG contract. What sort of accountability measures do you hope to see in the contract, and would you approve a contract that does not have them? Maritza, let's start with you.
Yes, I would not want to see a contract that negotiates out accountability. We need to hold officers that are committing wrongdoing accountable, and we need to be providing training for other officers in general. And so we definitely do not want to have a contract that does not have accountability in it.
Ron?
Yeah. Reformers tell us the key is that accountability needs to be independent, civilian only, where no conflicts of interest, as in nobody that you work with is on it. It needs transparency, which means subpoena power, and it needs the ability to discipline officers when they step out of line. I would not vote for a SPOG contract that lacks these. These are basic forms of governance. And when, look, I was a CEO and I had a board. The president has Congress and Congress can fire them. Everybody needs a boss. And in a democracy, when we hand people a gun and we put their lives, everybody else's lives in their hands, we cannot fail to deliver on this accountability. And I think actually once we do that, not only will we see better behavior, will we avoid things like that horrifying body cam thing that happened the other day, but we can actually start to heal the relationship with the community and make progress in our community policing, in our evidence-based policing, and in our hiring.
Great. So as a follow-up to that, the 2018 contract that was approved by the council, many of those accountability measures in it were things that same city council implemented, voted to pass. And then when it came time, there's just immense pressure from SPOG to approve the contract. So starting with Ron, I'm just curious to hear, how do you resist the pressure of SPOG to push through a contract that has less accountability measures, given their sort of strong political influence?
Yeah, so it would be really embarrassing to fail to do so after I pledge right now that I will not vote for any contract that fails to have these measures. That's how I'll resist. I won't.
Maritza?
Well, we need to work together as the city council and with the mayor to ensure that when these contracts are up, that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to the accountability measures that we're putting in place. So it's working together that we're going to be able to push back and make sure that we are following through with those accountability measures. They're clearly important. Full stop. When a police officer is engaging in wrongdoing, we need to hold that police officer accountable. Thank you.
A new poll by the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce just revealed that and this poll was taken in the first 2 weeks of September, 700 surveyed. It revealed that 3/4 of the voters don't trust that the council can reform policing without compromising public safety. Do you believe that to be true? 3/4 of the respondents said they could not trust the council with that. Candidate Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry. The current council, I totally agree. They've been dysfunctional. They approved this. It's not exactly the same council, but they approved the previous contract, and they have not done a good job at actually working on this. Do I think that a city council that is elected cannot do that? No, we have examples of this all over the country, of jurisdictions making progress on this. And I will actually say we're not as far as we should get, but we in Seattle have made progress on our contract with SPMA, the seniors officers. Senior officers, not the seniors officers, excuse me, and also with the King County Police Officers Guild as well. So this is not something that is something that Seattle can't do.
But is there a balance? So can you compromise? Can you have a fair compromise between public safety, the needs that people are all talking about here, and an adequate police force with reform?
reform does not make us less safe. And that's actually not what the voters said there. They said they don't trust the council to pull that off. So while I agree with them about the current council, I don't agree with what I think you embedded in that premise, and I don't think was in actually what the voters said, which is that there is somehow a trade-off between accountability and transparency and being safe.
Candidate Rivera.
Yes, I think that it makes sense that I'm not surprised by the poll given the 2020 defund actions by the city council, which then subsequently led to our public safety situation being much worse post the pandemic. I think we can both do accountability, but also we need to hire more police officers. We need to deal with training police officers, but there are officers out there doing a good job as well. They don't feel supported, and we're having a hard time recruiting police officers because of the actions that we've taken. I also think that we need to look at how we're going to recruit more officers because having a fully staffed police department is really important to public safety. So I'd like to look at things like, let's recruit young people to these great jobs, doing an effort like the firefighters did, where they did a collaboration with the Seattle colleges to do a certificate program for firefighters, and then they could pull from those youth into the fire academy. We ought to look at doing the same thing for the police academy.
Mayor Harrell is set 1450 as the number of officers he would like to have staffing. Would you support fewer officers and put some of that money to alternative policing methods? Candidate Rivera.
Yes, we need to have a fully staffed SPD to address 911 response times and other public safety issues that police officers can't currently get to, like the house break-ins and the car break-ins, et cetera. And we can only do that with a fully staffed police force. Department. So I support Mayor Harrell's plan to hire more officers.
But none of that money going toward alternative policing.
Once we are fully staffed, if there's money, then I think we can look at that. But we need a fully staffed police department to address public safety in the city.
Candidate Davis.
Yeah, so we are off by 27%, or as this, I think we're somewhere in the mid 900s now. And that's terrible. And it also turns out that Memphis is off by 25%, Atlanta's off by 27%, and Tulsa's off by 20%. This is a national problem. Hundreds of thousands of people have left the discipline. So I don't support pretending that we can get 20x what SPD says we can, which is 15 to 30. But I also don't support pulling money out of the police department to fund alternates. I think we need to tax ourselves to fund alternates.
How much do you think then is a reasonable number? You were saying that you don't think we're going to maybe get to the 1,400 we're hoping for. At least you're saying it will be hard. So what is a comfortable number for you?
A comfortable number would be fully staffed, but that's not what SPD says is possible. SPD says given the hiring conditions, including 85% of jurisdictions in Washington state being down and almost all of them offering bonuses, marketing, and maybe politicians doing some magic, our best case scenario is to grow by 15 to 30. So my job as a leader is not to wish the problem away. It's to identify what the professionals say and say, okay, how do we handle the portfolio of emergencies we have in the meantime?
So why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so hard to recruit police officers lately? What is your opinion?
Hundreds of thousands of people left the profession. I mean, that's what police, that's what the people doing the recruiting say to us. That's why why almost every jurisdiction in the country is struggling. After 2020 and the protests came up, there was a set of people whose feelings were harmed by that, for better or for worse. And so a lot of
talking about the defund, when you say
the defund
high?
movement and just a lot of critique of the police, right, nationally. And so hundreds of thousands of people left the discipline nationally. And so, in my world, like I hopefully we'll talk about affordable housing right now in a minute, but I'm not going to give you a plan that involves me changing interest rates or the price of lumber. So I don't think it's reasonable to build a city plan around doing magic with national hiring markets.
Do you have a number that you're comfortable with?
The number I would be comfortable with is fully staffing, and we need to have that as a goal, and we need to work toward that goal. And we need to, like I said earlier, we need to make sure that we're addressing the culture in the police department, both training officers, but then also making sure that we are supporting the police officers that are doing a good job. And making sure that we are recruiting folks that want to do this job because they see that we're supporting the officers that are doing it.
And we have to move on, but really quick, when you say fully funded, are you talking about the 1,400 number?
Yes, we have to have that as a goal and keep working toward that number.
Okay, we're going to move on to homelessness, a big topic. So Seattle is coming up on the 8th anniversary of declaring a homeless crisis. Hundreds of millions of money have been spent in just the last several years to fight homelessness, yet no big dent. We can see it out on the streets. Name a few things the city is doing right now that are not effective. Again, city doing right now that is not effective.
Oh, that'll be fun. So, well, one is the way we build affordable housing costs between $50,000 to $70,000 more per unit than it needs to. Two is the King County Regional Homelessness Authority was set up to fail by being designed with 3 boards, a lack of accountability, and an opt-in model where it's the equivalent of us going around saying, hey, would you like to pay for parks this year to all of our neighboring communities, and us calling that a regional solution. Lehigh has had serious behavioral issues in terms of as a provider. Sometimes we claim that we are providing housing to encampments when we're actually offering sobriety first or a segregated shelter that we know nobody will take, and we use it as an excuse to sweep. There's all kinds of ways we're wasting money. We could be more efficient. I will note, though, that McKinsey Partners did a study and said we still do realistically need to spend between $450 million to $1.1 billion more a year incrementally, but we also need to hold these programs accountable and make sure that we get all we can out of them or reallocate.
Maritza?
Yes, the King County Regional Housing Authority, which is supposed to be in charge of the regional response, has really overpromised and underdelivered. And just by way of an example, they recently pulled the plug on Partnership for Zero, which was supposed to address the big homelessness problem downtown. So we need to make sure that if we are going to continue with the Regional Housing Authority, that we are doing what we can to set it up for success. It has a new director there'll be a search for the new director, and we need to really work on who that new director will be to get that King County Regional Housing Authority back on track. We definitely need a regional response because Seattle can't shoulder the burden of the homelessness problem in the region. We need to work in partnership with the other cities, and so it'll be really important for the new director to do that. Oh, did you have a...
No,
oh,
I thought
sorry.
you were done. Do you...
No, and then, also when you ask what is also not effective is, we are taking this, oh, I ran out of time. Can I finish?
Yes,
Okay.
because you've actually had less time to speak so far, so go ahead.
Thank you, perfect. We've had this, I support permanent supportive housing and doing an individual response to folks, the unhoused that need housing and services. But we don't have enough permanent supportive housing services and units. So we do need to do the temporary options. And, folks need to, it is inhumane to leave people living on streets, and we need to get people housed even in temporary sheltering. And that means that they're gonna have to accept some form of shelter if some is available to them versus allowing folks to live on the street if their preferred option is not available to them, because we really need to, for the safety of the folks living on the street and the safety of the neighbors, we need to really get folks housed.
We all have follow-ups to this issue. Okay. So I'm going to ask my first follow-up, so it doesn't have to be long answers.
Okay.
You guys both brought up the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, and both critical of it. Are you saying that you think that it should be scrapped, bring in something else altogether because we've tried it, it's not working? Or do you want to keep it and evolve it?
The latter. We do need a regional response, but what I described, the governance model, the opt-in model, is a failure, and so we actually have to tie the region together in funding and governing the response correctly. So I'm on the put it on a sort of short leash and keep it accountable and reform it side of the debate. I'm not ready to knock it off yet.
Okay, Maritza.
Yes, we do need a regional response. If it's not the KCRHA, then it's going to have to be another regional response. That's what we're doing right now. And I think that with a new director coming in, we should give the opportunity to see what happens, with the knowledge that down the line, we might have to pivot to some other regional mechanism if it's not working well. Because one thing we do in Seattle is if things aren't working well, we keep funding them, and then instead of looking at a different model to address the problem for the outcomes that we want.
You both highlighted areas that you think are not working in the city's homelessness response. Tell me a little bit about some areas that you think are working, or if they don't exist in your mind, some things that you would bring to the table as a city council member to make progress on homelessness. Maritza, let's start with you.
Yeah. Well, I think that, again, permanent supportive housing is the thing that we know works to house people. People can't stay housed if they don't have the services that they need in order to stay housed. So that is really, the thing that we should be striving for. But in the absence of that, I do think there are some other models like tiny homes, which are working really well. The firefighters, I feel so honored to have their endorsement. They're telling me, the tiny home model works very well as a temporary solution. They hardly ever have to go to a tiny home village for a response of any kind.
Thank you. Ron?
Yeah, a number of things. I agree tiny homes are effective, particularly as a sort of short-term triage, get people off the street. I spoke at the Nicholsville event recently, their anniversary. Co-lead, I mentioned lead earlier, co-lead does a really nice job of getting people into housing that also need treatment. The Downtown Emergency Services Center in Plymouth are overstretched, but they're examples of permanent supportive housing that are effective. They need supplemental help. And then, in my own neighborhood, we brought in Cedar Crossing, 254 family-sized units, right? So we are generating a lot of housing as well, but we need to do better.
I have a question. If a person who's living in a public space like sidewalks is repeatedly offered housing and services and they refuse, what should the city do with that person? Kennedy Rivera?
As I mentioned earlier, if there is a space available, then people need to take the space that is available. It is really inhumane and unsafe for people to be living on the street.
How are you going to force them to take that space?
We should look at creating policy to have that mechanism, because we really should be bringing people in from the streets.
Kennedy Davis?
Yeah, so it's an interesting hypothetical, but there's a reason it's a hypothetical, because when we actually offer housing, something like 93% of people say yes. So you know what, let's get through the first 93% and then we're going to figure out those really hard cases. We love to fixate on those hard cases as an excuse to prevent us from actually making the investments to address the other 93. So that's where my energy is right now.
Some homeless encampments do pose a safety risk. What do you do about that? Are you for sweeps? Because some people don't want sweeps. It's controversial. So do you agree or disagree with sweeps? Maritza.
I support Mayor Harrell's approach to encampments and clearing dangerous encampments. We've said tonight that it's inhumane and unsafe for people to live on the streets. A lot of these encampments have drug dealing going on in the tents, sex trafficking, lots of gun violence and violence against, women and youth are particularly vulnerable. So we do need to bring people off the streets.
So you are for sweeps in certain situations. Is that what you're saying?
I am for clearing encampments to make sure that folks are safe and putting them into temporary sheltering, for instance, and getting them off the streets.
Ron?
Sweeps are unconstitutional under Martin v. Boise, and they're a really great way to light money on fire without accomplishing anything. They move people from one part of the city to another and often make the situation worse. Now, resolving encampments is important, and sometimes the Harrell administration does resolve encampments with housing, and I definitely support it when they do that. And we know that when we do outreach and we actually offer real housing, we're extremely successful. So I think sweeps are a way to avoid the issue and waste money, and I think we need to use housing. So I'm for clearing an encampment if it's getting people into housing.
What happens if they don't go into housing, if there's 1 or 2 or 3 people left behind? Because sometimes that's the case. I'm going to give you a perfect example. In Wallingford, which is your district, we had a school, John Stanford International School. There was an encampment there for a year. Parents were upset. There was a fatal shooting there, widespread drug use, crime. For more than a year, parents said, remove it, please, because it's a safety hazard. So in that specific situation, since you're not for sweeps, what would you have done?
So as to my understanding, and I've worked with the social workers who actually got that encampment and cleared, it was cleared without a sweep. And so I don't know about.
It took more than a year. So we were wondering,
yes,
it made the news, it was a big deal. So what would you do in
terrible.
that situation?
What I would do is not sit on my hands and fail to deliver affordable housing over and over and over again and use sweeps as an excuse to not do so.
Okay. Do you have a response?
Well, I would say on that particular, it's interesting. I did have a conversation this week about that particular encampment, and it turns out that there were only 8 people living in that encampment, and they all did get some form of housing. And so that means that that encampment and many more than 8 people were at that encampment throughout the year with all this criminal activity. So if it had been only 8 people, we should have cleared it sooner and gotten those 8 people some type of sheltering, but shut down the encampment that was very dangerous, and it was near a school.
All right, so we're going to move on to housing, which is a subset of homelessness. So Josh, we're going to have with the first question.
Great. So this first question is about both market rate and subsidized affordable housing. According to a recent projection by the state, Seattle is estimated to need another 112,000 new houses, apartments, and condos over the next 20 years to meet demand. How should Seattle address that need, and where should those homes go? Let's start with Maritza.
Yeah, we need housing options and different kinds of housing all across the city. Affordable housing, public housing, market rate housing, mixed use housing. We have House Bill 1110 that passed recently by the legislature, allowing for duplexes, quadplexes, and sixplexes in transit centers. And we should be implementing HB 1110 in Seattle. And I'll tell you, in our district, there's Bryant Heights is a great example. It actually got built before HB 1110 passed, but it's a great example of a development that is duplexes, it has quadplexes, it's near the transit center, it's right on 65th on a bus line. And it also has preserved tree canopy, which is really important as a climate change issue that we're dealing with across the city as well. So that is a mechanism that we can currently use to create housing across the city.
Ron?
Yeah, legalization. So brought up zoning all over the city. I actually helped pass HB 1110. I'm on the board at FutureWise, and we led the charge on that. And in addition, that brought up zoning needs to be paired with limited lot coverage so we can protect trees. And also we need to be investing in more trees. And a difference between me and my opponent here is that the Master Builders Association, who wrote the tree legislation that made it easier to cut trees down, has put tens of thousands of dollars into a PAC supporting her. The other thing that we need to do is address our permitting process, which is abysmal. We have a 2-track permitting system. Many other jurisdictions have a single-track system. Tacoma's a single track. And they get permits done about half the time. We could actually attach a builder's remedy to it to make it so that we actually get done in more like 16 weeks. And then there's a number of specific rules that make that process onerous that we could also do. We should also use only objective, not subjective standards in our permitting process.
As a follow-up, is missing middle going to be sufficient? Do we need upzones beyond that? And if so, where would they go?
Before you answer that, I'm just going to give Maritza, I know that he said something about you regarding the trees and attacked your policy there. You have time to rebut that.
Well, really about the PAC, I mean, as everyone knows, campaign finance laws preclude campaigns from being involved with anything related to a PAC or a independent expenditure. So our campaign has, we have abided by every campaign finance law that we've been required to under the ethics laws in the city and the state. But I'll say that my opponent was recently fined for putting out 2 mailers without the public disclosure that is required by the ethics committee.
So we want to just keep it to the policy. So
I'd
we're going to
like
move.
to be able to respond
we're
to
gonna,
that, though. Yeah.
We're going to move on from that. Okay. So Josh, we'll go.
Well, I guess we'll return to the question. Is missing middle, duplexes, quadplexes, 6+s enough, or do we need more density? And if so, where should it go? Ron, you start.
Puget Sound Regional Council and the Commerce Department say no. It will make up about 15 to 30% of the regional needs anyway. We need more density everywhere in the city, and I mentioned my plan above about how to do that. I do want to respond to the statement about the mailer, which was missing 5 words from a disclosure. We paid the fine. It also came out today that Ms. Rivera did not state tens of thousands of dollars of funds in income, and then a complaint has been filed. So I don't really want to hear about my house.
Let's just refrain from talking about those issues. Let's stick with the policy. We want to make the best time of what we have. Okay, Josh, do you have any more questions?
Well, I guess Maritza should also ask or respond. Is missing middle enough?
Well, I would say again, HB 1110 really gives us the opportunity to do more housing across the city, and we haven't done. We keep having conversations about density, and here we have one opportunity where it is a law and we can create housing of this type that all developers, including small developers, can also be creating housing under HB 1110. And so we really should be utilizing that law to create more housing across the city. And there's some other things we can do besides HB 1110 to encourage more housing across the city.
You're both talking about increasing density in housing. There's always going to be a trade-off. That in a tight city like Seattle, where the streets are very narrow, there's very little parking. There's a push to put in bike lanes and bus lanes. Where do you sit on the trade-off on something like that, where we don't have enough room to put in all the housing and the parking that should be going with it? And a lot of the plans don't require developers to add more parking for the development. What's going to happen to the bike lanes? Should there be more bike lanes to take up the parking that these developments are going to take it? Candidate David.
Sorry, no city has ever made the transition to a dense city without handing over some right of way. And cities that require parking just end up putting all the buildings farther apart, like in Houston. It literally doesn't geometrically work. And so we do know the most efficient ways to use our space are things like pedestrianization, bike lanes, and getting people on buses. So while there will be some trade-offs here, but we do know that that is the only thing that any mature, successful city has ever done that started to pass the kinds of thresholds of density that we're at.
Candidate Rivera?
Yeah, we do need to protect bike lanes across the city because we know that there are a lot of fatalities happening. And so we really do need to protect those bike lanes across the city. As we're building housing, there are a lot of infrastructure issues that we need to consider. That's why when I talk to voters at the doors, everyone is worried, making sure that as we support more development, and voters do support more development, but that we're doing it thoughtfully and gradually, and that we're taking all these infrastructure considerations into account.
Okay, so a recent report shows Seattle could face a $221 million budget shortfall by 2025. That leads to the question, how much do you tax? How much do you cut? Matt?
So how do you plan to strike a balance between raising taxes to generate revenue? And again, we're going to have that 250 million projected shortfall in 2025, and ensure that these tax policies are fair and equitable to all residents, including those with lower incomes. Candidate Rivera?
Yes. Well, one thing that my opponent and I differ on a policy level is on accountability. We really need to, one of the big things that City Council and the mayor, one of the main responsibilities is to be good stewards of the public funds. And so we need to make sure that we are looking at the budget, looking at the programs and the services that we invest in, and make sure that they are getting the outcomes that we're intending when we make those investments. This current City Council hasn't done a very good job of doing that accountability piece, and it's something that we really need to do. And then once we engage in that exercise and we make sure that we are getting the outcomes that we're intending, then we move on to see how we can, what revenue we should be raising and looking at to fill the gaps. But the accountability piece is really big, and one that we have not been engaging at the city.
Candidate Davis?
Yeah, I've actually articulated already tonight multiple programs that we should be holding accountable and either reforming or moving money out of. So that wasn't true. But I will say one area we are different is I don't think that I can say the word accountability and make $200 million appear. It's true that some of these programs we could get more affordable housing out of. We could get better, more efficient, safer, more equitable policing out of. What we can't do is shake the couch cushions and find $240 million. I support progressive taxes. My wife is a doctor and I'm in tech, and we pay about 3% of our income in state and local taxes, but a barista pays 17%. That's obscene. You don't have to be a leftist. You don't even really have to be a Democrat to think that's crazy. And so we do need more progressive taxes here. We could make modest adjustments to Jumpstart. We could do what Alex Pedersen has said with a 2% top up to the extreme capital gains tax that was passed at the state level and easily cover these gaps without doing the water bill swap that he suggests.
Just follow up for Candidate Rivera. Where would any money come from for any of these affordable plans? Any new tax revenues on your horizon?
I would, after the accountability piece, I would I would have conversations about looking at the capital gains.
Austerity first and then taxes later? Tighten the belt?
Yes, and then we can look at things like a capital gains tax, for instance.
Where do you stand on universal income. Tacoma tried it. Seattle's thinking about it.
Yeah.
Would you support that measure, candidate?
I'm open to the conversation for sure. I know Tacoma tried it. It was a public-private partnership involving United Way and a corporation, and it's a pilot program, and it initially it looks like it had good results. So definitely open to exploring the possibility here and having that conversation.
Universal basic income.
Yeah, it's been studied in a few dozen places and generally produces very positive results. I've specifically made, that counter started at about 5 seconds. I've specifically made a proposal related to income taxes that would be a flat tax that would be paired with a UBI that would make it functionally progressive. So I'm already on the record as supporting UBI.
And since with, you mentioned income taxes, so I know that that obviously is not a city council issue per se. You don't have the jurisdiction to vote on that. But if the state legislature were to create an income tax, would you support that?
I would, and actually, according to an appeals court judge, we would be able to do it at up to 1%, the equivalent of the city council's ability to tax other forms of property.
So you're saying that you would not wait even for the state legislature to make the decision on income tax overall?
Paired with the UBI, so it would be progressive, yes.
How do you feel about that, Maritza?
If the state legislature passed an income tax, I'm in support of that. I mean, they've tried to do it in the past and it has failed.
It has failed, but if they don't, would you support pushing it in a different way here in the city of Seattle?
I would have the conversation about it. I'm not familiar with the legality of it, but I'm open to the conversation for sure.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, you guys. Thank you so much for staying with us so far on this. And over the next 2 minutes, we'll cover even more with our lightning round. It's a fun round, okay? So we've got 2 minutes on the clock. Yes or no answers only. No maybes, please. So pick yes or no. And to really, yes, and to help really choose, we have those helpful paddles in your hand there. Green, as you can see, is thumbs up, and orange is thumbs down. And try to hold it up so the cameras can see it back there. Okay, so let's get going with this. And Matt, you've got the first one.
First crack. Are you in favor of rent control should the state legislature allow it? Hold it up, Kenny Davis. You want
No maybes.
So I'm sorry, I talked to the people
No
earlier.
This
they
is
told
yes
us-
or no.
I was told earlier we could do this. Depends on the rent control.
No maybes.
Well, it
Can
depends
you-
on the rent control.
where
That's
do
the
you-
answer. I'm not going to give you an answer that's not
Where
true.
do you lean more towards?
If it's second generation rent control, which is larger than inflation.
No answers. Okay.
Does D4 need more dog parks?
Yes or no? Raise the paddle. Orange is down, green is yes.
I don't actually know, but I'll say yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, what about I don't know?
You guys agree with that? All right. So do you think your policies for the most part, align with Mayor Bruce Harrell? Yes or no?
Okay. Would you support a safe RV lot if the location was in District 4? Yes or no?
We're circling back here, but do you think the wealthiest Seattleites should be taxed even more to generate revenue?
Okay, I'll do that. Just
Is public transit in Seattle safe? Yes or no?
Kind of talked about this earlier. Would you have voted for the recently passed municipal law to prosecute people for public drug use? Would you have voted for it?
I've been very public. I'm officially
Yes or
maybe on that. That's my answer.
No answer?
No answer.
You can say no answer if you'd like.
Do city employees deserve more than a 1% cost of living adjustment?
I rallied for it.
If you were not running for D4 and incumbent Alex Pedersen was running, would you vote for him? Yes or no?
Depends who he's running against.
So you don't want to answer this question?
No, it
either?
really depends who he's running.
Okay, let's move on, Matt.
Is he
No
running against
answer.
Elizabeth
All right.
Warren?
No
All right.
answer. Go ahead.
Gasoline prices in the state are some of the highest in the country. Some blame the state's tax on emissions from the gas refiners. Do you believe that to be true?
Sure, I'm for it still. Yeah.
I actually don't know. So does that mean?
Is it based on the governor's the policy of taxing pollution? So that's why we have gas prices high. Do you believe that to be the case?
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, last question. Do you think your policy, again, well, we've asked that one. I'm going to go with a fun one.
Oh, good.
Will the Mariners ever win a World Series? Yes or no? Oh,
no.
Ouch.
I'm going
We
to
did think
rally
about
for
that,
the
though.
Mariners.
All right. And that's all the time we have. We'd like to invite candidates to give closing statements now. We'll put 60 seconds on the clock, and we're going to go with you, Maritza. 60
Oh.
seconds.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for hosting us here this evening. I appreciate the opportunity. We can tackle our toughest problems: public safety, affordable housing, homelessness, climate change, and we can only do that by working together. So I am committed to working with, if I'm successful, working with the other city council members, with the mayor, with the community, and with residents of the D4 and across the city, to really make this city the vibrant, safe city that I moved to 22 years ago, and that people have, even before me, the folks that are from here, remember it to be. I'm honored to have the support of Mayor Harrell, the endorsement of Mayor Harrell, Councilmember Sarah Nelson, the Seattle Times, the Seattle firefighters, the Seattle building trades, and I really would be honored to have your support here tonight as well.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. As I said, my goal is to make it so Seattle's a place everyone can start a career, raise a family, and age in place. I'm proud of the work that I've been doing to push that, and I'm ready to jump onto the council to do so. And I'm endorsed by a number of people that we trust to be pushing our community forward. These people include people like Gurmai Zahalai, Nick Licata, Teresa Mosqueda, Daria Farivar, Nicole Macri, almost everyone in the public safety space, 17,000 correction workers, Lisa Dugard at LEAD, retired trial judge of the year, Teresa Doyle. I got awards from Moms Demand Action, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. The bus drivers endorsed me because I have a practical plan to make buses safe, as well as Dom Davis at the Community Passageways. I'm also proud of the fact that none of my endorsers have ever paid me or my spouse to get into office as a job, and that there is no conflict of interest there, and that I'm endorsed simply because of my history of action and my history of successful advocacy and building deals with people.
Okay. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed tonight's debate. The Seattle City Club is organizing another debate for candidates in District 5 next Tuesday, and you can find details at seattlecityclub.org.
And it's not too late to register to vote. You can always update your registration on the website. It's just not too late. You can go to votewa.gov for more information. And make sure your ballot is postmarked by November 7th and return it to the drop box by 8 p.m. on Election Day.
We'd like to thank our candidates and our live audience who have been graciously holding their applause. Now go ahead and thank the candidates.
Citizens of America, or citizens of the world.
All right, from the University of Washington, I'm Hannah Kim with Fox 13. I'm joined by Josh Cohen here at Crosscut and Matt Markovich with KIRO News Radio. Thank you again so much for watching, everyone. Good night, and remember to vote.
Citizens of America, or
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is Brenda Charles Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. Join me every week to get information on activities and issues that impact the lives of older adults and their families. That's Seniors Matter every week on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to
Generational
say.
wealth, as of right now, it feels very inequitable given the identities that you have versus if you are a person of color or not. To me, for this generation, I'm going to have to work really, really hard for intergenerational wealth to develop, especially with the economic system that Seattle's in right now, more than ever. Having been a Seattleite as well, I hope that we can talk about it more. And glad that this conversation is starting and to consider thinking about it more as a person of color and coming from an immigrant background as well.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.org. Create your generational wealth for you and the future of your families. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
For me, generational wealth is passed down knowledge from relatives or any family members, or even like any ancestral people that have come before you, that is, used to help you progress in the times that you're living in. So I think it is very updated, it's very current, it is existing in real time. So any type of knowledge or resources from people who are here living now, being able to provide that information and pass it down from generation to generation, how you maintain the wealth. That's what it means to me.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Create your generational wealth for you and the future of your families.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living, broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they had to say.
Black generational wealth. For a long time, that's been a dream that needs to see reality. For hundreds of years, Black people have been in the United States and have suffered for it. We built this country, but have not yet really seen the dream come alive and what that means for Black people and people of color. This is going to take some time and some work and a lot of sacrifice. But people of color have always done that, and so it won't be any different. You don't need to do it alone, and you don't need to do it alone, because this is a community work project. It's going to take some rigor. It'll take a change in mindset for individuals and the community and the nation at large. This won't be simple, but that's okay. Nothing that's good or worthwhile is ever really simple.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Welcome back to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. of the Post Debate. Ron is here.
Hello, Tony. Everybody had to listen to my nasally voice for the last hour. Now I'm back listening to your smooth, dulcet tones.
Maritza declined to talk to me.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
Sure.
But you are here.
Oh, are you part of some scary bad thing I should know about? I don't even know. What radio station is this anyway? Okay, kidding.
I don't know.
Yeah. I always wonder that about myself too.
We'll see which of the moderators decides that they don't want to talk to me either.
Oh, you're going to do a thing with the moderators. Fun.
So, Ron,
yeah.
Tell me what you think. How did this go for you? This is a general question. We'll get to some more specifics. The process, the questions, the moderators, the system that was in place. How did it work for you?
I thought the moderators did a nice job. I thought they were fair and clear most of the time. I had heard ahead of time that we were going to be able to give a maybe, and so being called, a no answer on the maybes was a little frustrating. But it turns out it was a miscommunication by staff. No big deal. I thought that the time we had, it was nice that it was a whole hour, but a minute and a half to how you're going to tackle homelessness or whatever is always challenging. So I always like it when we have a little more time. But we were covering a lot of issues, so I thought they budgeted well. I thought giving us the 30-second rejoinders when we need it was nice and was fair. I feel good about what I said. I don't have like a spin on it other than to say like I pretty much was able to cover most of my policy positions well, and I think my opponent made some of her policy positions clear, and so here we are.
So I'm just going to ask the questions that I'm going to ask.
Okay. Oh man, I got to do this again.
I'm curious, and I would love for candidate Rivera to respond to this, but this issue of 24 employees,
26
employees,
of 40, yeah.
Saying that candidate Rivera created a toxic
Actually,
environment.
Yeah, they signed
Can-
that letter
can you-
before she was a candidate. So at the time, it was actually just a letter about their boss. So they wrote this letter to the mayor, and the three claims were toxic work environment, really made it really difficult to do the basic work of the city, and shouldn't be trusted with city funds. And that has been talked about by Crosscut. Actually, in fact, it was written up by Josh, who was here today. It's been talked about by the stranger, and then it was brought up in an interview with Maritza on the radio on Hacks and Wonks with Crystal Fincher.
So why is that important? Why did you bring that up?
Yeah, because in the end, people who can build relationships and be effective managers of people are the people who are effective legislators. And so when you have a history of alienating your coworkers and the people who work for you and ineffectiveness, and when people are saying you shouldn't be trusted with city money, well, we'll have a whole lot more city money to try to figure out what to do with while we're on council. I think it's extremely relevant.
Okay. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that, well, they said that you weren't supposed to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
well, I might have
what
to.
is this? What is this thing about that you broke a law?
Oh, yeah.
With a mailer. Can you explain?
Yep. When you send out a mailer, there's a rule that says you're supposed to say paid for by Seattle for Ron, in my case, Seattle for Ron, and then the P.O. box, X. And so we wrote from Ron and the P.O. box. So we did not write paid for and for Seattle, paid for by. So there were 5 missing words. So the commission said, hey, this is non-compliant. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. We sent them the information. They had me in. It was a 4-minute conversation in front of the commission. We agreed ahead of time on a $500 fine for each of the 2 letters. And bada bing, bada boom, we were out. And I would contrast that to, we were supposed to make financial disclosures. And Ms. Rivera spent months trying to avoid that. And if you just watch the tapes there, it's quite clear who the commission was frustrated with. And it now has come out in the last couple of days that after the commission forced her to disclose her financial relationships, she left out some that involved tens of thousands of dollars of payments to her husband from politicians. Not hush money or something scary. It's economic relationships, but not disclosing your basic financial conflicts of interest is a much bigger deal. So we were non-compliant. We owned it. We paid the fine. I made that statement from the King County Dems. Part of their statement that I didn't mention earlier is they're asking her to come clean about that funding.
Was there some intentionality that you had about
bringing it up?
About not doing it paid for? Or...
No. In fact, actually, the whole goal of it is to make sure that people know who it's from. And I literally wrote from Ron. So part of why the commission was so this is obviously a clerical error is I did identify myself. I just didn't do it properly. So my bad. It's my job, right? Buck stops with me, and we blew it. So we paid the fine.
So something else you mentioned earlier, and again, I wish candidate Rivera was here to address this. The Democratic Party, issued a statement to candidate Rivera.
They did. I read a very small part of it, but related to so the fuller statement, and I'm gonna try really hard not to get it wrong, but it involved honesty about backing from sort of big MAGA Trump donors. It involved this disclosure issue I mentioned, and it involved very specifically what I did read was calling her to stop both, I think the terms were gaslighting, using disinformation and actually fabricating things about my platform. And so I've actually had to create a fact check page on my site, seattle4ron.com/fact check, because regularly in these forums, a new fib or a piece of misinformation comes up. And so it's gotten tiring. And at some point, the Democratic Party, we're both Democrats. We both get Democratic data, voter data, and things like that. And at some point, I guess they got pissed and said, knock it off.
You kind of went on the attack. At least from my perspective.
Yeah.
It seemed like the moderators wanted to talk policy.
And we did. Lots of policy.
But you kind of went on the attack.
Yeah, I've spent weeks having a person lie about me. And so I did lead with that to preempt it, because usually what happens is we get into one of these debates and we get about halfway through, and then she makes up some position like you wanted to defund the police or whatever, and it's always something new. And then I got to give up my whole minute of talking about policy trying to explain, no, I didn't want to, proving negatives and things like that. So I did start with that so that we could redirect back to actual policy and to prevent more of these falsehoods.
And that was something. Do you want to explain your position on defund the police?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should defund the police. I never have. I have said many times that I appreciated the impulse to show solidarity with a community that has been repeatedly abused, and with the calls coming out of that community. I appreciate the values there. But I think if we learned anything from the Reagan years, it's that gutting funding for a public agency doesn't make it function better. So I do think we need to ourselves more and pay for all of the police alternates and diversify and change the policing's portfolio. But I don't think the source of that, I mean, we're already way undertaxing our rich. I don't think the place to do that is to pull from our existing department.
Okay. And that was the other thing. When they said tax the rich, you during the lightning round, you put your green or yes thumb up.
Yeah.
Really high and really quickly.
Well, I know the answer to that question. Look, I mentioned when I was up there, right? My wife is a physician and I am in tech, and we pay 3% of our income per year, and we make a good amount of money. It's obscene that we pay that low of a tax when teachers are paying 10% and when baristas are paying 17%. We have to increase our taxes on the rich, because right now we're taking more than any other jurisdiction in the entire country. Washington State has that most upside down tax regime. So you don't have to hate people for being rich. You can still want a thriving economy, but doesn't mean we need to rip everybody else off on behalf of the rich. So yeah, we should tax the rich and the merely wealthy like me, right? So
last thing I'm gonna say, to this District 4 you said that you would support an RV lot.
Yeah, we had one
in District 4.
Sorry. Yeah. So in fact, there was sort of started to be one. There were some fights over it actually at the University Heights building, which was supported by, I believe, the business group and definitely the University Heights organizers, who are big leaders in our community. And ultimately, we know that having people camped all over the district creates all kinds of harms that are problematic, and it also makes it hard to get folks services. And so getting people into a safe RV lot is one of the most efficient, effective ways to both contain the externalities and to get people the services they need. So yes, and every district should have them, right? So I don't think it's always easy to say, yeah, I'm for RV lots, just nowhere near me. And my children went to preschool in that building, and childcare from 1 to 5, both of them. So we spent about 7-8 years going in and out of that building, and I would have supported that, and I still support it.
Did you learn anything new about your opponent's position, your candidate Rivera, from the debate
today?
Today.
I don't remember if I did or not. I will say we get asked the same set of questions or small variations on it. You know what? I didn't know exactly what she thought, and I still don't know exactly what she thinks, but I guess I got a little bit more insight into her feelings about the King County Regional Homeless Authority. I don't think, other than her saying there needs to be a regional solution, I've not heard her talk about the new director so much. There was a little bit there that was unfamiliar to me. Everything else was pretty much ground we've tread many times.
All right. Well, once again, based off of what we've heard tonight, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk to the audience. I will say that candidate Rivera declined the opportunity to holler at me, and I was certainly going to provide the opportunity for candidate Rivera to respond to some of the things that you said. But if candidate Rivera is not here, nothing I can do about that. So, having said that, if there's anything that you would like to say to our audience right now, candidate Davis, the floor is yours.
So a couple things. One is, look, I got a little boy at Bryant and I got a little boy at Eckstein. I'm raising my children in this district. I'm married to a family doctor who's delivered many of the people's babies in our district. We care about this place. We are fighting to make it better, and we just want good policy that makes it a safe, thriving place where people can grow up there, people who don't come from lots of money have actual opportunity there, and where we are preserving the climate. And I think the other thing is, I will say, we're a big Democratic city. I think for the most part, not everybody here is a Democrat or left of Democrat, but most people are left of center. And, I've got an opponent who's funded by MAGA money and the National Association of Realtors and the developer lobby. And so I just do not believe that in the end, when you look at their agenda and the agenda that she is pursuing when it comes to taxes, that she's in line at all with Democratic Party policy. Like, I'm not a crazy leftist. I am an Elizabeth Warren fan, but I'm also a Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden fan. And I think I represent the values of this district, and I hope that almost $250,000 of swarm of money that I was told by the downtown lobbyists they're planning to bury me with. I'm hoping that we can cut through that noise and give people a chance to just understand the differences between how we work with others, how effective we've been in our jobs, and what kind of policies we actually want to pursue.
All right. Anything you want to say about tech?
So I have that background, right? So, I love that we have a thriving tech community. And I also think we have opportunities to diversify both away from it into totally different kinds of jobs. So I'm also the labor candidate in this race. I have dozens of unions, including the Labor Council, with me. But I also think we have opportunities to take our strengths in tech and move into adjacent areas in biotech, bioinformatics. There's a whole bunch of emerging fields there that I think are the jobs of tomorrow, and Seattle's really well positioned. And so while I'm not for trying to attract everybody here with no taxes, I do really want to see those places succeed. And I mean, I'm literally brought in by venture capitalists to help other tech companies, right? So I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face, but so I think we can be really successful and continue to be successful in that space without pursuing crazy policies.
How important do you think it is to have experience in policy, in business, as opposed to being an advocate, or someone who's just passionate about an issue or wants to make change and runs for office?
I think it really depends on the job that you're going for and what those experiences in business or advocacy or whatever are, right? So, for me, I went to Harvard Law School. I studied public policy, and I've literally been on the boards working on strategy to pass legislation and successfully passing that legislation. So I've done the sort of relevant work, and then in the business world, right, really successful manager. Many people who've worked for me say it's the best professional experience in their life. And I'm a deal maker. I'm brought in when CEOs have trouble closing deals. And so most of what is legislation is good public policy. Well, hopefully it's not always good, but understanding public policy and making deals. So that's my experience set, and I'm pretty proud of it. And I think it's highly relevant.
In this particular election, is that an advantage?
District 4 is maybe to a fault obsessed with its credentials. So for instance, the biggest union that endorsed me is postdocs, research scientists and engineers, right? Biggest union, not biggest union, the biggest footprint in District 4, because we have so many geniuses and scientists. People do care a lot about your experiences, about your credentials. They're willing to see past it if you have skills that aren't credentialed. But I do think they care a lot about making sure that you have the right experiences to do the job. And so I think if it cuts through all that MAGA money noise and all the lies and all that stuff, yeah, I think it is an advantage.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me before and after. It's nice to talk to you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. That was Ron Davis. Candidate joined us before, then joined us after. Again, Maritza Rivera declined to join us. And we'll. I think we're going to talk to Matt here in a second. So, debate number 3. Council position number 4, and I got my guy Matt.
Yeah, hey Tony.
Okay.
How about it? He just had the big candidate. Did you have the other candidate on? Did you have candidate?
Candidate Rivera opted not to talk.
She deferred. Defer to the second half and take the first question of the next debate, I guess. Okay, all right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on what we just witnessed here? What?
I thought we covered a lot of ground compared to the other debates.
Yeah.
So I was happy about that. There was a lot more topics in there, and the candidates were quick with their answers, and pretty much stayed on topic. I think a goal, if you had watched the debate with the panelists, us moderators, we wanted to stick to policy and ideas they had, and any kind of talk about this person didn't have her staff support her, or he had some campaign violations, ethics violations, campaign funding violations. That came up, but we didn't follow up on that. We wanted to steer clear of that and just have it more informative for the people in the district.
Well, I followed up on it.
Well, you did. Good.
At least with Ron, because you didn't follow up on it. And one thing that I did notice, and I talked to Ron about that, is that he attacked candidate Rivera. What are your thoughts about the tone that sets and how that came off? How did he, just what kind of vibe did he set by creating that?
I think that compared to maybe if people watch the presidential debates and the senatorial or governor debates, there's always a lot more attacking. And then if you had to compare that to very public debates that we see on national TV, this was mild compared to that. And, I think in terms of our role on allowing some of that to happen, consciously going in, I'll admit it, consciously going in, we didn't want to have any of that kind of talk about staffing issues or campaign financing, who's supporting who. We made a conscious effort not to have that. We stuck to policies. But when it comes down to their opening statement and their last statement, they could say whatever they want. That's their time.
Yeah.
So we weren't going to follow up on that.
How did it make you feel? Like I said, I'm saying I felt like, I'm not saying whether it was good or bad, but I felt like, whoa, he's on.
Yeah. Well, good.
Candidate Rivera, and it made me curious, which is why I asked when he sat down, further explain, what the issues were, what the issue was with the mailer as well.
And I think that's fine. We didn't want to have that part of the debate. So I'm just telling you why I may not be answering why that's important for you guys to, for you to talk about. But we just consciously didn't want to bring that up in the debate. I thought that, yes, he did come on the attack and he was strong in that way. But he, the idea behind the lightning round with just a yes and no answer, he tried to say no, maybe, no, that's just yay or nay. You were put on the spot on a simple question. And she didn't do 50%. She admitted she didn't know anything because on a couple of answers. But he would say maybe, you can't say that. It's a yes or no question. There were no babies. So I was kind of disappointed that he went ahead and did that on a couple of our lightning questions.
Yeah, he did do that. And y'all tried to get answers out of him for that. Do you think that worked against him, or do you think that I think his point was that there were just some things he felt like he couldn't answer yes or no to.
But as a politician in this town, Jenny Durkin famously repeated to me many times when I ask yes and no questions. She goes, "Matt, I'm not going to give you a microwave answer. It's done in 10 seconds. It's not a microwave question or answer." But we try and get those yes/no questions, because when it comes down to it, they're going to vote yes or no on a policy. There'll be parts of it they don't like, parts of it they do support. But when it comes down to it, they got to give a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
And so we just basically did some simple litmus test questions for a yes or no answer. And you don't have time. We're not giving you time to say maybe. You have to make a decision right as you stand there. And as an elected official, you're going to have to do that.
All right. Well, I'm about to put you in the same position. Did you feel that there was a clear winner in the debate tonight? District 4.
I can't. I'm not going to. I'll just say that Kenny Davis had some very strong answers. I mean, he articulated his answers pretty well. He did answer and made statement positions, like if there's an element in the SPOG policy that he didn't like, he's not going to vote for it. He did come out and say things that were statement oriented. I didn't hear that so much from candidate Rivera. So in the sense that someone who came out and actually stated some of their positions and kind of put 2 feet down, he did more of that.
So how did you feel, man? Now you've done a couple of them.
Yeah,
you represented communities. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I love it.
Would you do it again?
Absolutely. I come on with you guys anytime too. I'm happy to help out and give my opinion, my 2 cents worth. I don't give all my opinions, but I just kind of give my observation. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you joining us both times and coming up here and having this discussion, and especially this post-debate show here, which I think there were some differences in the candidates.
Yeah, there were. I think I don't know if we did a great job showcasing those differences, because again, there's a lot they agree on. All the city council candidates tend to agree a lot on Seattle safe. No, they agree on some of the big top. We have a homeless problem. Yeah, but when it comes down to what they're going to fund, because again, the city council members, they are in charge of the checkbook for the city of Seattle, and they can, if they just don't like anything, they won't write the check for it. And everybody wants money from them. Everybody's going to lobby the city council really hard. So it's going to come down to, when it comes down to budget time and when they have their ideas, will they execute on their ideology? And all we're trying to do is kind of showcase some of that ideology here.
Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity for final words. I'm not going to let you go without giving you the space to say whatever you'd like to say to anyone who's listening right now.
I love what you guys do. How about that? No, I think that, this is going to be, in terms of the city council races, this is a pivotal election, because 5 candidates, actually 7. I look at some of the polling, but I'm saying, so 5 races are kind of up for grabs. 7 total races, could be decided, and you could have a total shift in the city council philosophy. And if they pick certain candidates that would start leaning toward the middle, I think that's a huge thing for the city of Seattle. We have Tammy Morales is probably the last council member, incumbent, that's on the dais right now. That's very progressive, left leaning, almost in the Sawant camp, but not quite. If she gets voted out, then you're gonna have a new council. You're gonna have a new council.
Well, Matt, it's been great talking to you. You are welcome on Rainier Avenue Radio .world anytime. We've got November 7th, and
you gonna be broadcasting that night?
We'll be broadcasting that night.
Hey, well, maybe I'll have to track you down.
Maybe we'll have to track you down, and then we can see what happens. After our decisions are made. But
okay.
Thanks again.
You're welcome, Tony. Anytime.
This has been great. Well, that's it for our post-debate broadcast. Again, we heard from candidate Davis, but candidate Rivera, I don't know the reason why. I think what I said was didn't want to talk to me. That's how I took it. But there could have been a good reason. I just don't have it. So it is what it is. You saw the debate. If not, go back and check out for yourself. And at the end of the day, choose a candidate that aligns with your values and who you'd like to have represent you in District 4. Again, don't forget to vote. I think I mentioned earlier that if you're a felon, there are, as of January 1st, if you're not currently incarcerated, you can vote. You just have to register. So, and I think it's October 30th is the deadline for being able to do this by mail. You can register almost all the way up to November 7th, but then you have a provisional ballot, which is kind of a different thing. But one more, and that's going to be on June 17th, and that's at North Seattle Community College. Thanks again to City Club. That's going to be Kathy Moore and Christiana Obey Sumner. And Converge Media, thank you to Converge, and thanks for everyone who joined us on the air today. Thanks to the incredible Rainier Avenue Radio staff. Big shout out to Lavoy. That's it. That's all the time we have. That's going to do it for the kid. Big shout out to Kimberly. And a big shout out to Mr. Bellis, aka D Money. who you listened to last night on Fresh Juice Wednesdays at 9, D Money. All right. Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.